The 20th century witnessed some of the greatest conflicts in human history: the communist revolutions in China and Russia, and the Second World War. Although these conflicts had very different objectives, they had one thing in common: a powerful belief in atheism. Atheism is a belief system that there is no God, no day of judgment, and no one should be restrained or restricted by their belief system. That way of thinking was very obvious in the actions of communist and the Nazi regimes of the 20th century. Karl Marx, a convinced atheist and founder of communism, believed that he could bring about a system of peace and equality on earth by destroying the capitalist system and replacing it with a system of common ownership. Millions of people lost their lives in Russia and China as a result. Such unbalanced thinking is quite common among atheists. On the other side of the political spectrum, Hitler was strongly influenced by Charles Darwin's theory of the survival of the fittest. Darwin showed that over millions of years, the strongest and fittest animals survive in a process known as natural selection or evolution. Hitler attempted to apply this theory to the human race, whereby the German race would emerge victorious. Hitler was also influenced, of course, by another famous atheist of the 19th century, Friedrich Nietzsche. Nietzsche is famous for believing that God is dead and that the best way to find meaning in life is to become some form of Superman, regardless of the moral consequences. So overall, atheism is a belief system that has a dreadful track record, sending millions of innocent people to their graves. In the end, Nietzsche cracked up with all his daft ideas, and Hitler went on to impose tremendous destruction on the world. In the modern world, the damage done by atheists in the past is now largely forgotten, and that has created an opportunity for a new form of atheism to emerge. There's nothing new or original about it, actually. It's just a new form of lazy old ideas being rehashed. One of the most prominent spokesmen of this new movement is British biologist Richard Dawkins. Dawkins is a very convincing writer and speaker. These qualities, however, really make him all the more misleading when he goes outside his field of expertise and speaks about issues he knows little or nothing about, like theology. As a scientist, people would expect him to know what he's talking about. He claims there is no God, but fails to provide any evidence to support this idea. A very strange position for a scientist to take. That fact alone should indicate to anyone that God is beyond the reach of science, but Dawkins himself never appears to grasp this reality. In 2006, he wrote a book called The God Delusion. The main theme of the book is that people who believe in God are deluded, but throughout the book he demonstrates quite clearly, actually, that there's no one more deluded than himself. He condemns all religions as nothing more than superstitions. He compares God to fairies and spaghetti monsters, something that even a 4-year-old child would find laughable. He talks about the extreme religious fanatics who brought down the Twin Towers and killed 3,000 people, but he never condemns his own belief system that took the lives of tens of millions of innocent people in the last century. In his book, Dawkins makes reference to one of the great British scientists of the last century, Fred Hoyle. He was a brilliant astronomer and physicist. Hoyle wrote several original papers on science in relation to the formation of elements within stars. He was fascinated by the precision of the elements involved and once wrote, "It looks like some super intellect monkeyed with the physics," in relation to the fascinating discoveries he made. At another point, Hoyle said that the chances of life starting on Earth were about the same as a hurricane blowing through an aircraft scrapyard and assembling an aeroplane, a Boeing 747, in midair. In other words, Hoyle knew that because of the immense complexity of the cell, life could not possibly have started on Earth. However, Dawkins rejected this analysis by saying that leaves scientists with the even greater problem of trying to solve who designed the designer, something that a 6-year-old child tends to ask, who made God? So in his own narrow view, Dawkins believes that if God does exist, that science should be able to establish that fact. Otherwise, we're entitled to conclude that he doesn't exist. The idea or the view that if God exists, he needs to provide evidence for himself, that idea runs right throughout the book. It never appears to occur to Dawkins that God might be beyond all human understanding. So let's have a look at that possibility. In 1915, Albert Einstein developed the general theory of relativity. This theory changed the world's understanding of time, space, and gravity. According to Einstein, gravity occurs because of massive objects like stars and planets distort the fabric of space-time. The ideas involved in relativity are extremely complex, and mathematics and physics are extremely difficult. Even people with PhDs in maths and physics do not understand relativity for the most part. Yet the theory of relativity may one day be seen as no more than a step on the way to understanding the universe. So if scientists like Dawkins don't understand the mathematics of relativity, how could they possibly understand something infinitely more complex, the creator of all things? One person who did understand the theory of relativity very well was actually a Belgian priest known as Father Georges Lemaitre. He was a brilliant mathematician and physicist. He had doctorate degrees in both maths and physics. In 1927, Lemaitre used Einstein's theory of relativity to show that the universe was expanding. This was a revolutionary idea at the time, which even Einstein rejected. However, 2 years later, the famous astronomer Edwin Hubble confirmed the accuracy of Lemaitre's prediction by observing the redshift in distant galaxies. A couple of years later, in 1931, Lemaitre did further work on Einstein's theory and projected that the universe must have had a beginning, what he called the primeval atom, almost 14 billion years ago. This discovery shocked scientists who had been convinced that the universe had always existed. The idea that the universe had a beginning was shocking in its implication because it implied that it had a creator. That discovery counteracted much of the doubt created by the theory of evolution a couple of generations earlier. In the following decades, the accuracy of Lemaitre's analysis was confirmed by scientists, and the explosion from the primeval atom became known as the Big Bang. Scientists also discovered the precise fine-tuning of the universe which is needed to make life possible on Earth. Unlike Dawkins, Lemaitre was a trained theologian who knew how to read the Bible and that some of its modes of language were not meant to be taken literally. He knew that the Earth was millions of years old, but he never considered leaving the priesthood as a result. Instead, his discoveries laid the basis for future discoveries in relation to the fine-tuning of the universe in future decades. Life on Earth would not be possible without such fine-tuning. As a result, at present, the science of physics has all but confirmed the existence of a creator. That will be the subject of my next video in a couple of weeks' time. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to the channel. And here now finally is a brief video which is a tribute to Father Lemaitre and his contribution to science.
Despite what some may think, faith and science complement each other. Father Georges Lemaitre may not be a household name, but this Catholic priest's groundbreaking scientific theory changed the way the world understands the origins of the physical universe. The Belgian priest devised what is labeled the Big Bang Theory in 1931.
His work in English. By then, Hubble had made the discovery that Lemaitre had predicted, and Lemaitre himself removed that part, with the most exciting part of the paper, thinking, Hubble's already done that. You don't need to know about me anymore. Rather than saying to the world, haha, I was there first, he let Hubble take the credit for actually making the observation.